And we're live. Paul, you're on mute.
Welcome everyone again off of mute. My name is Paul Beyer. I'm GAI Insights, and welcome to our daily news briefing, where our team of AI analysts rate top news of the day, essential, important, or optional for the time-starved executive leader. Today's briefing will be led by David.
All right, and bear with me today because I am the slide presenter for the first time, and I have not used this before, but I will do my best. Okay, so our first article today is a white paper from Deloitte. It's actually got a pretty good analysis of all the economics involved in using generative AI in the enterprise. John, I always think of you since you were the former thought leadership director at PwC for these articles. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty accurate description. I mean, this guy's going to be tens of billions of dollars of incremental, revenue uplift in 2024. They're comparing against the $14 trillion number, which came from the folks at ARK Investments, Kathy Wood and so forth, who tend to exaggerate, I think, in terms of their projections. So, it was pretty straightforward. Basically said, hey, look, enterprise folks are going to add this. We're going to see how much the market wants to pay per user per month and all that other stuff. I think that's a good projection for 24. I think what's not in there is that we're going to have completely different models that may not go through the traditional enterprise software folks, and we have some of them coming up in terms of some of these like small molecule AI engines really make pharma more productive. You're going to have all kinds of money going into that, but it won't be coming necessarily from SAP or Oracle or Microsoft and so forth. So anyway, I think it's optional, accurate, useful.
I would, John, I would add, for someone who spent 25 years in this, I mean, nirvana from a vendor standpoint is to be able to have a SaaS contract and charge for additional new features. So to me, it's stunning that Microsoft's getting away with $20 to $60 per employee for office productivity stuff here. And to think that I'm a big company and we're going to have extra fees for SAP and extra fees for Workday and extra fees for ServiceNow, it's gonna add up. So I think there's a real battle out there for what is willingness to pay.
Yeah, I mean, another way to think about it too is that the enterprise software market is about 1% or less of the global GDP, and so how big will the market be for intelligence? I think it'll be bigger. You know what I mean? But will it go through the enterprise software vendors? I don't know. We've got, depending upon who you listen to, like $80 to $100 trillion global GDP. Let's call it 100 trillion. I think we're going to have significant, 2-3% of that 100 trillion is going to be the intelligence layer, if not more. But that'll take a while.
All right, so I guess we're going optional. I went with important because I thought there were like a bunch of great figures in here that I thought an AI leader might be interested in knowing if they don't already, but I'm already outnumbered. So unless anyone else feels the same.
I actually was thinking it was a slightly important myself, actually, also, David. So I find it interesting that we're divided in the middle today. So Tanya, what's your vote?
I was going to say, I marked it important as well from the perspective of the pricing models seem to keep changing, right? And I think that as an executive, it's important to be aware of how the different vendors are planning to price things. Some things might come for free within their enterprise software. Other ones may charge, the per user per month. I don't know. It just seemed interesting to kind of see that is still evolving, the pricing models. So that's why I marked it important.
All right. It's 3-2. We're going important after all on this one. Okay, let's move to the next article. So this is an announcement that Google has now teamed up with Hugging Face and will now be providing cloud services to those on Hugging Face. And I couldn't quite understand. I think they said that the developers wouldn't have to pay for it, but then later in the article, it seemed like maybe that wasn't the case. One interesting thing that was not noted in this article was that AWS was the preferred partner with Hugging Face. That started off in, I think, 2021 and 22. So apparently that's not the case anymore. And who did I assign this article to? Because I can't see my spreadsheet. So raise your hand if it was you.
You assigned it, to Paul.
Paul, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, this is optional. I mean, everyone knows that the getting to the fast lane for the first inch of the developer's keyboard is critical. And I won't be surprised if Microsoft won't do the same thing. And it's just a matter of how much money they're going to spend. I don't think it's exclusive. I don't think Google is paying $1 billion to Hugging Face. So I think it's one of many, many things that's going on to court AI developers.
Well, they are giving money to them. I mean, everybody's giving money to them, right? NVIDIA, Amazon, I forget the list. It's actually here, but it's like every major tech player seems to be giving money to these guys. So
yeah. But I don't think it affects. We just lost David. I don't think it affects the brand. I think David inadvertently.
I got kicked out.
Okay.
There you go.
All right, I'm back.
So optional. I did want to say good morning to Michael, who's online, and Blaze, who's joining us from Twitter.
So I actually, Paul, I was the other end. I was essential on this thing because I think, to me, if you're like let's say you're a Microsoft shop and you're waiting, which a lot, as we know from our clients, a lot of people are kind of waiting on Microsoft to do stuff. This seems to me the most credible, counterpunch by Google in terms of really the open source models and the lack of lock-in that we're recommending to people. In addition, it's Google, it's Google's Kubernetes architecture underneath this. I just think that this seemed to be a bigger deal. Huh?
But if I were a Microsoft shop and I saw this, I would take this price and go to my Microsoft rep and say, match this thing.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't know. I mean, I just think having an open source, having this kind of cross-funding on open source with real power behind it made sense to me as a decent counterpunch by Google.
All right. I think we're going to go optional on this. I mean, it's a good development, that low cost use of the cloud on Hugging Face, but we'll mark it as optional. Oh, we've got a commercial. Okay, next article. My buddies at my former workplace, Watson, IBM, is announcing that their consultants are using their generative AI tools. As we remember, we talked about that BCG study that took place toward the end of last year that showed that the BCG consultants gained, I think it was like 40% productivity when they were using the generative AI tools versus those that weren't. So IBM is taking advantage of that. So again, I'm sorry, guys, I have too many windows and I can't see my spreadsheet. So I rely on you to jump in, whoever I assigned. Well, maybe I assigned this.
I don't know that we had anyone assigned, but because people had a problem with accessing the article, but IBM is also my prior employer. So I'll jump in here. So I mean, I think that the concept, is a concept that a lot of consulting companies are doing, right? Or companies that are in the services side, putting their data into these LLMs and optimizing, improving the productivity of their internal folks first. So it's an article about that. This article also talks about their investment in Hugging Face. So overall, it almost seemed to me it's a hey, IBM is in the game too. Don't forget us. I marked it as optional.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's option. This is getting to if you're a consulting shop and aren't using large language models, that's what's news. Just as a footnote, IBM had crushed a quarter, so their stock is up. I think it's the highest it's been in 11 years. Bloomberg analyst is saying that this is the sleeper player in AI. So I think there's some rejuvenation that we've seen in Microsoft, but potentially maybe here at IBM as well.
Amanda, did you want to add anything?
I was just going to say also optional use case. I know some other companies like Netflix, and they've incorporated bots and, various roles within their companies as well. So I think for some companies, if you haven't really incorporated this at all and they see the different roles this is assisting, they may want to look at this. So I guess I could start being convinced a little too important. But again, we hit that use case scenario. And to Paul's point, I mean, this is being used in many companies. So, I'm probably split in the middle between optional and important on this.
David, Michael online gives it a big optional sandwich.
I see that, and I agree. We'll go with optional on this one, but I'm always pulling for big blue. All right, next we've got an announcement from Variational AI that they are teaming up with Merck, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, actually. And I looked up their market cap. They're actually number 30 in market cap, 300 billion, I believe. So definitely a big play here. And on this one, I do remember I assigned you, Tanya.
Yes, thank you, Dave. So obviously, I gave it important for the pharmaceutical industry. Not sure why the video is not working today for me. So sorry, I look like a ghost. But I marked it important for the pharmaceutical industry. We've had several articles over the past couple of months of companies like Variational who are helping with expediting how we do drug discovery. We talked. I made a list of just the three that I remember: in silico medicine, Atomwise, and Benevolent AI. We had articles with very similar announcements where they are allowing scientists to. These solutions are allowing scientists to practically ask, "Hey, I want a medicine that can do XYZ and that has XYZ, proteins, and the model can come back with different options and ideas," right? Obviously, these models are highly specialized, have very proprietary, not proprietary, but scientific research papers in it that allow them to do this. So it's to me it's an incredible area where pharmaceutical can continue to leverage this technology. They've been doing it for some time, right? But it's good to hear that we're having new companies coming up. What caught my attention about this article too, and their platform that they're announcing is Enki. But what also I found interesting is that the company behind this, CDQM, it's a not-for-profit helping companies in Canada get into AI to support drug discovery and support pharmaceuticals. So we're starting to see, based on what we discussed yesterday too, that there are organizations, whether it's government or not-for-profits, that are trying to help these smaller startups to get a place in this market, right? Because it's not cheap, it's not easy to get in. So I thought that was an interesting aspect of this, and I wonder if we have a similar not-for-profit in the U.S. Helping smaller companies. Overall, I gave it an important for pharma.
Important for pharma, but optional for others.
Yes.
Any other thoughts? All right, we will move on. So this is in the we saw it coming category, and now it's here. FTC launches the probe into big tech's AI investments. So this is announcement of the subpoena that was issued to Microsoft, OpenAI, Amazon, Anthropic, and Alphabet, looking into the nature of their relationships. As we know, there's a lot of cross-investing, interesting structures to those deals, and the FTC is looking to make sure that these folks aren't engaging in behavior that's kind of squelching competition. So, John, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I think it's important for RAIN is important for our AI leader to monitor. I don't think it's going to go anywhere because I don't see the political will nor the politician that really is going to push on this. And there's at least a 50% chance that Trump's going to be in office. I'm not sure they would push on it as well. So I think it's important to monitor. I think it's absolutely relevant. I mean, I wish we had a Teddy Roosevelt in the wings that actually had the political skill and will to push and to really, because I do think that they dominate the space. I think the cross investment is huge. I think that the physical co-location of a bunch of these folks. I think this is looks a lot like the old trusts, and I think these companies are too big and too powerful, but I don't think they're going to get knocked off.
Yeah, and there's also, if people remember way back in the .com era, there was a whole bunch of these type deals where the company would say, "Hey, Mr. Startup, I will sign $1 million contract to buy your widget, but then I want $2 million in stock, or $1 million in stock, and then that stock's worth $3 million a year later, so it's a wash." And there was lots of big debate: is that ethical or not? Is right or not? And but I agree, John. Anything that happens 6 months away out from election is going to be.
Well, just in general, probes take forever, right? It could be years before anything happens, even if it does. Obviously the administration that's in place is going to, I think, dictate how far this goes. I just think the other thing is that when I was teaching at Harvard Business School, we used to teach a lot about the airlines, and the reservation systems have so many ways they can mess with small companies that are very, very hard to track down. So you can imagine the big guys. If there's anybody who's giving them grief, I mean, they could make the token, access less, and there's all kinds of ways that are very hard for a regulator to pay attention. Where operationally you can mess with anybody who's who you want to. They're very, very, very hard to track. Okay, so definitely an important one to watch. It'll be an interesting show, I'm sure. Okay, we'll mark it as important, and we will move on to another story about OpenAI, except this one's about their products. So they've released a bunch of different embedding models and new tools. This is all announcements geared toward developers and what the area of OpenAI that they're using. There's no announcements here that affect the consumer tool, by the way. So Amanda, what are your thoughts here?
So due to the fact that it's, like you said, kind of an announcement, could be optional, just two things I just wanted to point out, though, is just about the article speaking about better performance, lower cost, and that GPT 3.5 Turbo, basically that they're claiming it's capable of processing longer inputs and outputs. So anytime I think that you can add additional text or documents, whatever it is, into the prompt to get a better response and a longer response, what have you, right? That could be teetering then on the important realm. But this is another one, honestly, I could go either way, because to your point, again, it's like an announcement of different features and updates. So I'm curious to hear what others think on it.
I actually thought this was important. I mean, definitely a bunch of different features, and the pricing to me is the big thing for an AI leader to pay attention to. There's starting to be kind of the race to the bottom, right? And pricing wars, obviously, which will be beneficial for them. And they'll want to keep track of where they can save, because obviously this all costs a good bit of money. Paul, did you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, that's optional. I mean, we should expect that they would continue to have tools out there. When I'm a big company, I'm going to go to my procurement guys, pound the living hell out of any vendor and look at. So, I don't think this changes any Gen AI strategy that I'm doing as a leader.
Yeah, I give it an optional too. What I liked about it is, again, the dashboard that they're talking about. So when we went to the cloud transition, if you guys remember, there's really no clear visibility how much people were spending. And I almost feel like the vendors were doing that on purpose. And then you had companies like Cloud Health come into the picture that would help you kind of see how much you were spending. It's good to hear that this AI transformation, OpenAI is thinking up front and creating dashboards where we can see, how much is the spend. So that's what I found interesting in the article. For all, I said optional.
I just want to say, note to self, if I'm ever in the position of selling software to an enterprise, Paul's not going to be my client. I got to find somebody else in that organization to sell it.
That's right, John.
All right, we'll wrap it there. Today we had an optional article, but we'll skip it in the interest of time. Paul, do you want to just give everyone a reminder about our Monday Learning Lab and any other announcements you want to talk about?
Thank you, David. Yeah, so welcome to the Chris Brock Facebook group that we're live streaming for the first time. We're delighted to have you here and send us some feedback. Every Monday night, we have Gen AI Learning Lab, 7 o'clock Eastern. You can sign up through Meetup. And it's a great way to meet 50 or 80 people who have practical experience, practical questions here. And we also have an open mic. Our showcase on Monday is going to be about using text to video type tools. So we're going to actually go through examples using MidJourney and DALL-E 3 and others.
All right. Thanks.
Close us out, David.
Yes, and to that Facebook crowd, we will be with you now every morning, 7:30 Eastern, for at least a few weeks. We're trying this out and seeing how you all like it. So please do come back and join us next week. And obviously, thank you for everybody that's been watching us already. Particularly, Michael is a very faithful follower. Thank you very much. Your inputs are great. Have a good weekend, everybody.